Welcome to my yellow recap. The movie opens up in space on January 12, 2011 when three astronauts, named Brian, Jacinda and Marcus, are up there to fix a satellite as they're engrossed in work. The spaceship suddenly experiences a failure, and all the electronics shut down at the same time. Marcus noticed something strange, a weird black metallic swan from coming at them and really fast. Unfortunately, before Marcus and Brian can take action the swarm crashes into their spaceship. This collision knocks out Jacinda while Marcus is flung into space. Brain tries to grab him, but the spaceship's pull on his tether stops him and Marcus drifts away into space. Panicked, Brian goes back into the spaceship interest to contact Marcus, but the systems are broken. Meanwhile, the strange swarm creature drills a hole into a lunar crater and continues. It's too sad. After that, Brian looks at Jacinda, who is unconscious, and he decides to take the spaceship back to Earth. He successfully stabilizes the shuttle, and despite having no power, manages to start a stock thruster. This creates enough energy to land of the shuttle safely on Earth. Upon their arrival, Brian is labeled a hero for landing a powerless spaceship. The science doesn't really check out on that, but this is a big dumb movie about the moon falling out of the sky, so he's the hero. However, as the years passed by, officials start suspecting that he was the one responsible for the disaster. No one believes his theory about the black swarm attack either. To make matters worse, Jacinda can't back up his story because Ash was unconscious throughout the incident. She thinks maybe it was a solar flare or a meteor that hit their spaceship at last. NASA concludes that it was a mistake on Brian's part, so they fire him from his position. The story then fast forwards 10 years and we meet Casey Houseman, a janitor at the University of California. While working, Casey often sneaks into professors' office to use their computers. He likes to play Neopets and visit. He bombs world. One day he logs into the Chile National Observatory system and finds out that the moon is getting closer to Earth. This worrisome, so he tries to contact and assess, but no one takes him seriously. In the next scene, just said it is called to work early in the morning at NASA. She checks on her son Jimmy and gives instructions to his nanny Michelle before going to the space center. There she learned that the moon's orbit has indeed changed and their satellite has detected strange energy coming from a hole in a lunar crater. Just send it is shocked by the Revenue Nation and decides to act quickly on the matter. Back to Casey is frustrated with not getting through on the phone, so he heads back to the professor's office to conduct more research. While he's going through a newspaper, he learns about an event called Astronaut Day happening at the local museum. Boy, that's lazy writing. Realizing that this may be his only chance to find someone useful, Casey prints out his research and drives to the museum. Coincidentally, the main speaker at the event is none other than Brian. When the two meet, Casey wastes no time and explains about the moon's changing orbit. However, Brian doesn't believe him. Where do you hear that when your professor's computers, and instead call security to remove him from the museum as he's being taken away. Casey scatters his papers, hoping that Brian will read them later. Later in the evening, Brian learns that his son Sonny, this writing, has been arrested by the police. Here it is revealed that after he got fired from NASA, he spiraled into depression and lost his home. His wife also divorced him and took custody of their only son. The next day he goes to Sonny's trial, determined to make things right. However, Brian ends up causing a commotion by interrupting the judge and making up stories that his son. This leads to the trial being postponed and Sonny is kept in jail until the next hearing. Meanwhile, Jacinda and her team discovered that the moon is getting closer to Earth and will break apart soon, with city-sized pieces crashing into our planet. They also see a hole in the moon, which is a sign the time is running out. Not long after news of the moon's collision threat spreads on social media, the person who leaked this confidential info is none other than Casey, as he got tired of waiting for NASA to act. In the next scene, Just and her senior Albert hold a press conference to explain the situation and to assure the public that everything is under control. However, this announcement isn't enough to stop the chaos as people begin overcrowding the stores to stock up on supplies, toilet paper, and eggs. Everybody the drill. At the same time, NASA holds a meeting and decides to observe the moon by sending astronauts to space. After a day of preparation, they manage to assemble 3 experienced astronauts. Later, the shuttle arrives at the moon's atmosphere and hovers itself above the crater. But as soon as the astronauts and a probe into the moon's hole, the same strange black swarm from earlier shows up. It attacks the shuttle and kills all the astronauts. Jacinda and her colleagues witness everything on their screen and are taken aback. Meanwhile, the situation in big cities is deteriorating. Millions of people are leaving their homes in hopes of finding safer locations. Brian also finally gets to know about the danger. He then remembers Casey trying to convey the same thing long before anyone else knew about it. As he starts looking for information about the man, soon Brian tracks down Casey at a restaurant and asks him how he knows so much about the moon. It was just playing roadblocks on my props PC and it popped up. The latter shares that he has spent years studying distant planets and looking for huge struck actors in our solar system. As the tour engaged in conversation, suddenly there's a change in the moon's gravity. This causes violent tsunamis and earthquakes. On Earth, the restaurant also gets engulfed by a tsunami. But our heroes somehow manage to survive. Back at NASA, just send his boss Albert realizes that they can do nothing about the situation, so he quits this pause session and rushes off to a safe location at his sleeves. Josephina, in charge of the entire organization, to find more about the Black Swarm. She checks video archives from Brian's suit during their mission. And 2011, why did no one do that before? Shockingly, she discovers that Brian was indeed telling the truth. The video clearly shows the Black Swarm attacking the spaceship, but for some reason NASA decided to keep this information hidden from the public after this, and immediately conducts a meeting with the military. And they consider using nuclear weapons on the moon. However, she believes that there's no way to fix the moon's orbit without destroying it. She then contacts her ex-husband Major Doug to talk about an electromagnetic pulse, or EMP, called Zulu X-ray 7, which might help them destroy the mysterious black entities and bring the moon back to its orbit. Doug, who is working in the military, agrees to help, but only if she and her son Jimmy join him. After the mission, a final help you save the world, but only if I get to see those sweet legs again. Next, Jacinda figures out that she needs to go to the moon to find out what's really going on, and she wants Brian to go with her. He is the right person because he's the only one who has seen the Black Swarm and has the ability to operate the shuttle even in a worn-out condition. That night, a military helicopter comes to take Brian, but he agrees to go only if Casey can come with him. And this movie has a logic score and of -5. Next day, meet your Cinder, who tries to explain things that they already know. She shows them a video of the swarm attacking the astronauts and says it's made up of different AI-powered nanotechnology. Ryan agrees to help on one condition: his son Sonny must be released from jail and brought to the evacuation spot for safety. Once they agreed, they get an old shuttle from a museum to carry the MP. Right then, Earth started experiencing violent earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. Mrs. Strange, because the moon's gravity isn't strong enough to cause these things. It supports Casey's idea that the moon is a hollow megastructure. Sadly, an earthquake damaged the shuttle at their base, and with a missing engine, they can't launch. But while everyone else gives up, Casey keeps working on relations for the launch. Eventually realized that when the moon is right over Earth, its gravity is almost as strong as Earth's. And if they launch at that exact time, they can use the moon's gravity to compensate for the damaged engine. Yet following this, the trio groups up and quickly formulate a plan. Brian will fly the shuttle, Jacinta will be the guide, and Casey will use his calculator for shit. Before they take off, Casey calls his mother while Jacinta and Brian say goodbye to their respective sons, who will be meeting Doug. Brian even gives Sonny a gun for protection. Brian is unhinged as they get ready to launch. A big gravity wave hits the base, causing widespread destruction. To see waves come close to the shuttle, but Brian managed to use the moon's gravity to make a narrow escape. After a few minutes, as the shuttle approaches the moon, they turn off all their electronic devices. Brian then uses the thrusters manually, even though they encounter debris along the way back on Earth. The weather is going haywire because the moon is very near. It's also raining debris, and some of them are the size of a building, and to avoid all this, Michelle the boys have to take shelter in a flimsy shack until it's safe. Who needs a flimsy shack when you've got plot armor? On the other hand, when the shuttle near the moon, Brian takes a rover with the EMP and sets it up as bait for the Black Swarm. Unfortunately, the swarm completely ignores the rover, and instead he goes after the shuttle. Brian assumes the rover's remote control might be why is attracting them, so he destroys it, but the swarm keeps approaching at a rapid pace. Just when it seems like the shuttle is about to be engulfed, Brian figures out that Casey's phone is the source, so he gets rid of it, even though Casey, as a millennial nerd, he somehow doesn't freak out about this. This finally dissuades the swarm and they go away. Now the group We'll have to guide the shuttle into the moon and they only have 2 hours to do it before the military launch there. Nukes elsewhere. After all the crazy weather settles down, Michelle and the boys continue their journey, but they soon reach a dead end with angry residents pointing their guns at them. Fortunately, Sunny's stepdad Tom spots them and takes them away back. At the moon, the shuttle carefully enters the mysterious hole now and during the moon's anus. When they reach a certain point, they discover the Casey's idea was right. The moon is a mega structure around a power core. The AI-powered nanotechnology swarm is the one absorbing the power and trying to break down the moon. At this moment, the trio gets ready to use the EMP against the swarm. But something unexpected happens. The shuttle starts moving by itself. The swarm almost gets them, but a door opens and a light guides the shuttle inside. Unfortunately, the landing is a bumpy one and shuttle ends up getting wrecked. As the group lies there unconscious, a mysterious light scans them back on Earth. The military loses patience and decides to launch the nuclear missiles. Because of this, Doug causes Sun gives him the bad news: go to the bunker anymore. At this point, oxygen is quickly depleting from the air, so Sunny and the others are forced to wear oxygen masks. They then continue their journey to find a safe place, if there is one on the moon, just into and Casey wake up under surprised to find that they can breathe and there's gravity, but Brian appears to be missing. Suddenly, a door at the end of the room opens. Casey is skeptical about entering, but just Senda thinks that someone is trying to help them. Brian, on the other hand, is talking to a friendly being. He wakes up in a strange room with white light and it shows him information through images taking the form of Sunny. This being reveals that it's an operating system, alas, created by ancient humans a long time ago, when they had advanced technology and peace. It further discloses that the swarm is an AI that was supposed to help humans, but it became so intelligent that it developed its own thinking and killed its creators. Alteron and the Terminator have nothing on the moons but whole bugs. The OS then tells Brian that to beat the swarm they need to lead it away from the moon's core and destroy it. This way the moon can finally go back to its orbit after a while. Jacinda and Casey locate Brian inside the room and help them get up. The team then regroups and finds their damaged shuttle fixed and ready to go. They decide to try one last time to deal with the swarm. Brian is even willing to sacrifice himself for the sake of mankind. In the next scene, the group powers up their shore and flies away from the moon with the AI swarm following them relentlessly. O'Brien made it clear that he would be the one to make the sacrifice. Casey secretly grabs EMP and releases himself from the shuttle. He then leads the swarm to a safe location and detonate the EMP, killing them all. That shit, good job some with the sacrifice. The moon finally be when moving to its original spot. Science bitch Brian and just into also managed to use a pod to get back to Earth safely. In the final scene, Casey's consciousness is put into the moon's base and the OS talks to him. It takes the form of his mother and says that they have an important mission to begin. The hell was what? Why did NASA hide the video? Has of the AI. Thank you for watching my videos.